with it, which is awesome. But where this really takes a math turn is one of the types of interactivities that you can put into Pear Deck is a drawing slide where they can draw right on it. And so this lends itself really well to a math class where you're throwing out a question to the whole class and every student on their device can just be drawing on their slide, and then all of that gets turned into you. You can, pull it all up on the screen there, and you can see, different students' solutions to the question or their diagrams based upon what it is you're studying. It's a great way for students to all have a voice, to give everybody a chance to participate rather than just the same two students putting up their hand, all the time. Awesome tool. We could take a look at that. Under slides, we can also chat about stop motion animation. Basically, that's using a slideshow to create what looks like an animation by basically playing back the slideshow at a fast speed and making little changes on each slide. It could be a neat way to illustrate a concept in any subject area, but certainly math. It could be used by the students to take a concept that they're learning about and create an animation on it. I've got a couple here, one on area of an irregular shape and one on angles of a triangle, but we could go into the details on it's a fun activity, how students could use Google Slides to make their own stop motion animations to explain their understanding of a concept. After that, a few other little things I've got in here. Got a section here on screen recording, which can be really nice for students to be able to express their understanding of a concept instead of just, writing it out on a worksheet and handing in, the answers. Recording themselves solving a problem and explaining each step along the way their understanding of it. So a tool like Screencastify is a great tool for that. We can also chat about digital whiteboards. We've had to really take a look at those with the pandemic time, figuring out ways to be able to still teach math and but not have maybe a physical whiteboard in front of us. And so we've discovered things like Jamboard and Chrome Canvas and so forth. We could dive into some of these tools and see, especially like Jamboard, that one's become really popular, how we can do math activities on a digital whiteboard. And I think the last couple of things I have here are just some odds and ends. We've got a section here on Google search tools that include math topics, such as if you're learning about probability or random numbers, some of the built-in interactive search tools that Google has for that, as well as calculators and graphing. And I think the very end of this is just a couple of extra extensions, some calculator extensions and some measuring extensions that can be used on Chromebooks. So I don't know, there's a lot of ideas there, bunch of stuff, lots and lots of things. Anytime I've ever done this session, it's never gone the same twice because, I want it to be what you guys are interested in, what you'd like to spend some time on. Like I said, we could probably do a couple of things, maybe 2 or 3 and go deep enough into that you would feel, a comfort level with it. But that's what I'm kind of curious is what.
Eric, so, in the chat, you had, it looks like the most votes were learning more about Pear Deck. They know a little bit about it, but they'd like to know more. And then a few people said how much they love doing pixel arts. So those were the comments.
Well, we can start with those. I mean, if there's, again, that's what's great about the chat. If anybody else wants to chime in and say something really resonated with you, sounded like something you'd want to learn more about, we are happy to take your feedback. But you are right. I'm seeing several people mentioning Pear Deck, and I'm seeing some pixel art stuff there. We can start with Pear Deck, and because that definitely does seem to be the one that's getting the most votes at the moment. And then when we finish that, we can just kind of reassess, see what time we have, and then maybe chip off a second or third topic. Sounds good.
And Eric, it looks like most of the people that commented are in intermediate grade range of what they're teaching. So I don't know if that makes any difference in what you might share.
Awesome. Well, all right. Well, hey, let's talk about Pear Deck then. I think that will be a great way to go. So in a moment, I think I'm going to probably pull up a different tab here that has some stuff preloaded for some stuff I got for Pear Deck. But before I do that, just let you know that where you can find the resources in our agenda for this, looks like Pear Deck starts on page 4 and ends on page 5. So if you're looking where some of these resources are at between page 4 and 5, you'll see those. Heads up, I do have a 1-hour webinar I did on this about a year ago or so. So if later on you want to go deeper than we can go, even in the time we have here where you need a refresher, there is a 1-hour webinar that got recorded on this in the past, and that can be a good resource for you there as well. All right, well, let's do this. Let's first of all just explain what Pear Deck is. And so to do that, I think what I'm going to do is let's pull up a demo one. So I'm going to grab something from another screen here for a second. Give me just a moment to find my right tab here, and then I will pull this on over here for you guys in just a sec. Here we go. All right. So what I'd like to do is just kind of show you real quick the big idea behind, what Pear Deck is. And then we can, actually build one, go in and build one together and take a little closer look at some examples of what we could do with it with math. So, so to start off, Pear Deck is a tool that works with Google Slides. So you're going to have a normal Google slideshow to start with. Like in this case, this is just a Google slideshow, nothing special or fancy about it here. And then in addition to that Google slideshow, you're going to be using what's called the Pear Deck add-on. Now, add-ons are something that are found at the top of your Google slide window. In your menu bar, you'll see a menu that says add-ons. And you maybe have seen it before, or maybe you just never paid attention to it, but it's there. Add-ons are there at the top of Google Slides. And from that add-ons menu, if you have any add-ons installed, they'll be listed. And if you don't, that's okay, because in that menu, you will see a spot that says Get Add-ons. So if you don't have Pear Deck and you want to try this out in the future, and you don't need to install it right now, that's okay. We can just watch, that's fine. But at any point, if you want to install it, you would simply go to Add-ons, you would go to Get Add-ons, and then that will show you a list of, loads and loads and loads of available add-ons. Well, Pear Deck is one of the most popular ones, so you'll see it right at the top. It'll be right up there at the top. I've already got it installed, but if you didn't, you could just click on it, and then there'll be a button that says install, and you would just click that to install it, and it'll ask permission, and then it'll install, and that's it. After that, anytime you open up a Google slideshow, if you go to the add-ons menu, you'll now see Pear Deck. You'll have a Pear Deck option in there. So with that said, what you'll do is you'll take a slideshow. This could be a slideshow you've been using for, 5, 6, 7 years. Doesn't matter. It could be an old slideshow. It could be a brand new one. But you're going to open up a slideshow, and then from the add-ons menu, you'll go down to Pear Deck, and you'll say Open Pear Deck Add-on. And what it's going to do is it's going to open up a panel on the right-hand side next to your slideshow, and that's the Pear Deck panel. And so basically what this panel does is it allows you to drop interactive elements onto your slides. And there's lots of different interactive elements you can drop on. We're going to focus on, some that are maybe a little more math centric as we go through this, but there are 5 different interactives you can choose from. There's just the regular text interactive where the students will just type in a response, open-ended text response. There's a multiple choice option. There's a numeric option. That makes a lot of good sense for math, for sure. There's a drawing option. That's the one that I think is perfect for a math class. And then there's the drag and drop tool as well. All 5 of these can be added onto your slides. And when they get added on, what happens is you end up getting this bar at the bottom. So like these, this is a demo, so I've already added these on. I'll add a new one in just to demonstrate this here in a second. But the idea is you get this bar at the bottom that lets you know, hey, a interactive has been added onto that particular slide. So for example, if I just had a blank slide, I'll just go in here and create a blank slide. And who knows? I mean, maybe we were doing a lesson learning about angles. And so we'll pretend that, I've got a whole lesson here where I'm talking about, types of angles or something like that. And let's say that, we're learning about, acute, right, and obtuse. And maybe I end up having a question that I want to ask the students, like maybe I want to say, what would be a possible measure of an acute angle? And of course, there's a lot of possible measures, right? I mean, anything above 0 or below 90. Well, if this was just a regular slide and I'm in class, well, I'm going to ask that, and a couple of kids are going to raise their hand, and I'll just get answers from them. But what I would do is I'm going to engage everybody. I want everybody to have a voice. So I could have a regular slide like this, come over here, and I could click on one of the Pear Deck interactives like the number response. That would allow all the students to type in a number at that spot. So if I click on that, it goes boop, 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 and it drops in this Pear Deck interactive. And so now there's that little bar at the bottom. So when I run this slideshow later and let the students join, they would actually be able to type in a number there to provide an answer to that. And we'll do this. I'm going to run this in a second, and you guys can join, and you can try this out with me and see how it works. So there's basically two ways to Pear Deckify your slides. That was the first one, which is have a slideshow and just click on these little happy buttons over here on the right, and it drops the interactive element into it. There is a second way, though, and that is you're allowed to also use their template gallery or template library. They've got a bunch of pre-made ones. So sure, you can use slides you've already got. You can click the buttons, add the interactives on them, or you can say, I wonder, maybe Pear Deck already has some pretty nice slides I could pull from. And they do. They've got a lot of great stuff. So above those buttons, there's a spot that says Template Library. If you click on that, you can go into any of these categories, and you can pick pre-made slides that already have the interactive added on them. So like, here's a section just on math. So if I wanted to have a slide that had a number line on it, there's already one there. If I wanted a slide that has a coordinate plane, there's already one there. If I want a slide that just basically says, solve the problem and type in the numerical answer, here's just a generic number slide. Here's a drawing slide that just says, solve the problem and, write it out below. So all of these are great. If I just wanted to add one of those in, what it will do is it will insert that slide as a new slide in my deck. And this is also how you work around something that you eagle-eyed people may have already noticed. Because when I was talking earlier about clicking these buttons to add in these interactive elements, some folks may have noticed that 2 of those buttons have stars on them. And that star seems to indicate premium, which usually means paid. And you're right, that is true. There's a free version and a paid version of Pear Deck. I just use the free version. There is a paid version. If your school has it, fantastic. It's got some extra really cool bells and whistles with it. But here's the thing. You go, I would like to add a drawing element. I want my kids to draw on the slide, but it's got a star next to it. It's one of those premium things. Yeah, you're right. I can't just click right here and say, let's turn this slide into a drawing slide. But what you can do is go up to the template library, find a slide in the template library that's already a drawing slide, and just use it and modify it. You're totally allowed to do it. It's not cheating or anything. It really is. You're allowed to do it. So if I came in here and said, we're learning about quadrilaterals, and I want the students to draw an example of a quadrilateral, because there's so many different ones they could draw, right? Well, I could come into the template gallery and find a template slide that is a drawing slide. And it says right below what kind of a slide it is. Like this says draggable slide. This says multiple choice. This one here says drawing. I could click on that, and it's going to insert that template slide into my slide deck. I would just need to modify it. I could come up here and say, instead of saying solve, I could just change this and say draw an example of a quadrilateral. And I don't really need the rest of this text here. I don't need this little box there. I don't need that box there. I could just clean it up, and there it is. Now I've got a drawing slide. So you are able to do that totally fine. That's what those template slides are there for. And so that kind of helps work around that limitation that you would have in the free version. So that's the first part of Pear Deck, is you build the activity. Now, in this example, maybe it's a little bit skewed because every single slide that I have here has an interactive on it. I don't think that's necessarily representative. Normally, it would be like, 5 slides of instruction, and then you'd throw in an interactive slide. It's not like every single slide would be interactive, but because I'm demoing all these different examples, I went ahead and I put an interactive on every single one of these slides. So there you go. At this point, what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start the lesson. I'm going to fire this up and let you guys join the Pear Deck session with me, and we'll run through it like it's actually being done in a classroom. Now, before I do that, if there's any questions, please, at any point, you don't need to wait for a break. You can throw things in the chat. You can unmute. You can raise your hand, whatever method you would like to do throughout this. So let me know. And Diane, if you see anything popping up in the chat, also feel free just to holler at us. If anybody has a question, please let me know. But at this point, what we've basically seen is just create a new slideshow or take an old one, install the Pear Deck add-on. From the add-on, add interactive elements or add pre-made interactive slides that you can also modify as needed. Okay, so that's where we've gotten to at this point. Now I'm ready to teach my lesson. I'm ready to do this with my students. The students don't need anything special. They don't need Pear Deck installed because it's just the person who's creating and running the slideshow. And the students don't need a special kind of device. Anything can connect. They can connect on a Chromebook, a Mac, a PC, an iPad, a phone, doesn't matter. As long as they've got something with connectivity, they can connect to the Pear Deck activity that we're going to do in a second. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here and I'm going to click on the Start Lesson button at the top of the Pear Deck panel. And when I do that, it's going to pop up and ask me, how do I want to run this lesson? Is it instructor paced or student paced? Well, I'm going to do instructor paced because we're doing it live here together. And yeah, if I was in a class and I was teaching live and I'm going through a slideshow teaching live, it's instructor paced. You can do it student paced though. You could have one of these set up and say, hey guys, between now and Friday, make sure that you click this link and you complete this Pear Deck activity. And that's okay. They can do it at their own pace as well. It'll collect all their responses for you. So that can be done too. But for now, I'll say instructor paced. Now, when I do that, what's going to happen is it's going to now give us 2 ways for the students to connect to the Pear Deck activity. The first is pretty obvious here. You're going to see a link up on the screen, joinpd.com, and a code that they can type in. Now, that's an option, and if you want to go that route, perfectly fine. But there's a quicker one, and that is if you look below there, I got a spot that says Give Students a Link. I, as the teacher, can click that and it will copy a link that I can give to my students. So I'm going to drop that copied link into the chat. So if you don't feel like going to joinpd.com and typing in the 6-letter code, you can just look in the chat right now in our Google Meet, and you'll see in there a link that will take you right into the activity without having to type in the code. Either way is totally fine. It'll get you to the same place. I'm going to go ahead and do this as well so that I can kind of demonstrate it for you while we're looking at it. I'm going to bring another tab over here. I'm going to make it a little smaller. Let me shrink up this other tab here. There we go. So here is another tab. And on this other tab, this is my personal account here. I'm going to go ahead and go to joinpd.com just so you can see what that would look like. That if you do need to enter the code, that's what the students would do. In this case, it's XMBFGB. All right, awesome. And it'll ask who I am, and that's pretty much it. It'll let me connect into the Pear Deck session. Now, when you connect into the session, you don't have to say how you're feeling. That's just optional. You can just hit skip if you want, or it's fine. You can say, hey, I'm feeling great. Doesn't matter. Either way, once you either hit skip or do that, it's going to load up on your device my presentation here. And that's one of the cool things is that while I run through the presentation, what's going to happen now is as I go through this, it will update on your device. So the students will see on their Chromebook, on their iPad, on their Windows or Mac or whatever they're on, they're going to see the presentation as we go through there.
Hey, Eric.
I did see. Was there a question in there?
Yeah. Does the code expire or can you post it into Canvas for the kids to do self-paced?
Yeah, the code does not expire. Yeah, you could put this in Canvas and that'd be perfect. You can even convert a live one over to student paste afterwards. Like if you did this live in class, but there were some absent students, when it's done, you can switch it over to student paste and the other students who weren't able to be there in person could complete it. But if not, yeah, you could just say, no, this is going to be, if this was going to be a student paste one from the beginning, probably the easiest thing to do would be to, again, copy the link rather than having them actually type in a code, because you could just drop that link right into Canvas and then they could click the link at their convenience and work through it on their own. The only difference in this case is you're not going to be able to click forward until I click forward through the slides. If it's student paced, you complete the activities or you read the slides and you move forward at your own pace. That's really the only difference there. All right. Good stuff. Well, I'm going to go ahead and start up the class. So I'm going to click on Start Class down here at the bottom. And when I do that, now, if you notice as the teacher, I have these little arrows in the bottom left. I can use those to move through the different slides. Now, we did add a couple of math related things, but there's definitely slides in here that are not in any way math related, but they're demonstrating the capabilities of Pear Deck. So there's a wide variety of examples in this, and we'll hit them all as we go through, and then we can take questions after that. So let me go ahead and start this up. Come down here to the bottom left, and I'll hit my little right arrow to move forward. And hey, there's that first one that we that we added in, which was types of angles. What would be a possible measure of an acute angle? Now, again, this would not be a slide, existing just on its own. This would be part of a lesson. Like I would have been teaching about angles and I'd have some slides that show different angles. But at some point in the, lesson, maybe I want to get some feedback from the students. In this case, this is a numeric response. So you have to type in a number over here. So if it's an acute angle, anything like I said, bigger than a 0 or smaller than a 90, is correct. So, I'll throw in, something like, 42, put in that for a possible measure. Well, you guys can do the same thing too right now. You can start typing in numbers for what would be a possible acute angle. As the teacher, I can now come down to the bottom and click on the button that says Show Responses. It's not going to give anybody's name away. It stays anonymous, but it will show the responses that we're getting. And in this case, there we go. We get this graph because it's a numeric response showing all of the different answers that have started to come in. And if with a big class, obviously this can fill up pretty nicely. So depending upon the type of question you're asking, if it's a numeric based question, this is a great way to get all the responses from the students. Let's try some more here. Here's another one that we added in when we were creating this. Oh, I spelled and. I'm supposed to draw and. Sorry, I was typing too fast. Draw an example, not and. Draw an example of a quadrilateral. So what you should see now is you should see some colors at the bottom and then some drawing tools. There's a pencil, so you can pick any color you want and the pencil, or a highlighter or a line or a text tool. I'll just use the pencil. And basically what I can do is draw right on this slide. So, maybe, I don't know, for my quadrilateral, maybe I want to draw a trapezoid. Maybe that's the example I'm going to do here. Cool. And so I can draw right on that slide. And then as the teacher, I come over here and I can say Show Responses. And I can look at one of them at a time. Or I can look at all of them sort of in a grid here, or you could even do an overlay, which isn't going to make a lot of sense in this case. But if you think about it, the overlay would be neat. Let's say if I had done like a question where I used that coordinate plane and I said something like, draw an example of a line with a negative slope or something like that, and we could layer them and we should start to see some patterns there, from something like that. In this case, I think we're probably better off just, having them all separate there. But this is awesome because now we can go in and I can start looking at, hey, let's talk about some of these individual examples that we have here. This is a pretty simple one, but based upon what the problem is, this could be something where the students are actually working out a problem. We say, well, hey, let's take a look at another example. Let's take a look at another solution. And again, it's an idea of giving every student a voice. Everybody gets to participate and be a part. All right, let's see what other ones we have in here. Some of these, again, are just going to be sort of generic questions, not specifically math related, but to at least illustrate some of the capabilities here. So the next one in here is a drag and drop example. So what you should see is a blue circle on there that you can drag around to vote. In this case, how excited are you for winter break? And so we've got some options there. You can drag and drop that. And then as the teacher, of course, I can click show responses, and I'll even see your blue dots as they're moving around. And I am not surprised. Most of us are pretty excited for winter break. So now, how could that be used in math? Well, yeah, I mean, it could just be a quick fun survey thing like that. But this could be good for a coordinate plane activity where you're literally dragging the dots around to be like, okay, show an example of a quadrant 4, ordered pair, or whatever the case might be. Or it could be a scatter plot where, we're having students graph themselves on, 2 axes, and we get all the blue dots on there, and we end up with a scatter plot as we're, putting in their own information. So a lot of neat possibilities could be done with that. Next up, this is just a numeric one. And again, feel free to enter this one as well. Again, some of these are going to be similar to what we've seen before. This is another numeric one. This one is how many years have you been in education? I've been in for 30, so it's going to be just like we saw before. We're going to get that graph. Hey, nice though. Great spread of experience here tonight. This is awesome. Very good. But we've seen an example of one of these before. But yes, awesome if you need to collect numeric information from students. What do we have up next here? Now, the next one is just a regular old multiple choice type question. And that is one of the 5 interactive question types in Pear Deck is multiple choice. And in this case, I was just doing a quick survey, like what type of device do you normally use? And well, I typically am on Windows, so I would choose that. And it could be like that. It could just be a quick, survey, but this could also be great for a quick formative assessment check. If you're in the middle of a lesson and you want to see, are the students understanding what it is we're covering? You could have some multiple choice questions put in the middle of your slideshow just to do a quick pulse check and see, are they understanding it? Can we move on, or do I need to reteach anything? All right, I think we're getting closer to the end of our examples, but here's another one. Okay, this is another drawing one. So in this case, this was what is the farthest you have traveled? It's the same drawing tools, but notice what's different on this one is instead of me doing just a blank screen for you to draw like a quadrilateral on, I gave something for you to draw on top of. And so in this case, it's a map, and you can put a dot on it or an arrow or circle something. For me, I think probably the furthest I've ever gone would be somewhere on the West Coast. I've been to San Diego and I've been to Vancouver. So that's probably about as far as I've gotten. So I could put some dots over there, for example. If I go to show your responses now, again, we can see each one individually, or I can layer them. And this time that would probably make sense to see them all layered because we can see all of the responses on top. And we've got some world travelers here. I think all you guys have beaten me. You guys have all gone way further than I have been able to go, but that's awesome. Love it. Very good. Next up, let's see. Here's another drawing one. This was one of the templates. So I didn't create this one. This one was actually right from the template gallery, but it's another drawing one in this case, labeling a clock. If it's 1:30, use the blue to do the hour hand and use red to do the minute hand. And yeah, I took that one straight from the template gallery. But yeah, that'd be another good one if you were doing the overlay. Yeah, see, that's awesome. Helps us see consensus in our overlay. And I think the last example I have here is just an open-ended text response. In this case, it says, what is something you want to try with technology? It doesn't need to say next school year, probably just this school year or going forward. Feel free to throw anything in there. Like you might say, oh, actually, I want to try Pear Deck. This looks pretty cool. I mean, that could be the answer. The point of this one, though, is it's just an open-ended text response. So if you had a question in class that normally you'd ask and the students would raise their hand and answer. Well, what I love about this is everybody can answer. It's not just going to be one or two students. It's not just going to be the students who feel comfortable speaking up in class. Everybody can think about it. They can take their time. They can type in their answer. And then as the teacher, I can then decide to show the responses, and we can see as those responses come in, they stay anonymous up on the screen. So students aren't going to get singled out, which is nice. As the teacher, I can later spit out a spreadsheet, and that has everybody's names and their answers. So, it's good to let the students know, don't be silly, because it is recording who you are, and I can spit out a spreadsheet with that, but it's not going to put it on the screen up there. So everybody, feels encouraged to be able to answer. Now, those were the example ones I put in that. But if you were in the middle of a slideshow and you're like, I really should have asked another question. I wish I would have put that in there. As the teacher, you can go to the bottom and there's a button that says New Prompt. So right in the middle of a Pear Deck presentation, you can click New Prompt. And there's all of these pre-made ones you can choose from. So if you just say, oh, I just need a drawing slide right now, boom, I can click it, it'll add it in. I just need a coordinate plane. I just need a Venn diagram. I just need you to give me a number or select A, B, C, D or write a response. You can generate these on the fly, even if you hadn't planned ahead to have them in there. And that's the gist of it. When that's all done, what I'll do is I'll come down here and I'll click End, and that'll end the session. Before I do that, I will let you know the little 3 dots button next to the end. That's where you could switch it to student paced. So if you did want to keep this going, but turn it over to student paced, there's an option there to do that. But I'll just go ahead and click on End, and then ask you to name it. I'll just use today's date in case I ever get confused later and have to remember what this one was. But you can give a name to the session, like, the period and the date or something like that, just so you can find it easier in the future. Click Save, and that's it. It ends the session. The session is over. As a teacher, though, now, at any point, if I want to, I can go out to PearDeck.com. And from PearDeck.com, I can access all of those records. So I can just log in. There's a little teacher login button at the top. And once I log in, there's a sessions link at the top, and the sessions link will show you all of your sessions. So for example, here it says today at 4:42, there's the session we just did. I could reopen it. I could click on the 3 dots here to export the spreadsheet that has like everybody's names and their answers. So that is all available there if I would like to pull that back up. Like, for example, here's all of the answers if I wanted to reopen it and go back through it again and see how everybody answered on it. So pretty cool. So that's the gist of Pear Deck. I know we also seem to have some interest in pixel art. We definitely have time. We can take a quick look at that too. But before we do, questions, thoughts on Pear Deck and how we could use that in a math classroom?
Eric, you have one that says, can I add audio to the slides for self-paced? I like Moat for adding audio.
So if you're running it as a Pear Deck session, audio is only supported in the premium version of that. What you're referring to with Moat, I love Moat. Moat is an amazing tool, but Moat is only going to work if you are presenting the slideshow like a normal Google slideshow. So yeah, if I clicked on my Moat button and I recorded something, oops, I'm not logged in. Of course I'm not logged into Moat. Anytime I don't use it often enough, which I use it all the time, but it seems to log me out. So you can absolutely use Moat in Google Slides, but no, it won't come through in Pear Deck. And here's what I mean by that. If I click on Moat and I record, this is just a test, testing 1, 2, 3. And I go ahead and let that record. I hit insert. It's going to drop that audio into my slideshow. So the audio's there, and that's awesome. But that audio that it dropped in right there, that playable audio, that's a Google Slides feature. And if I were to hit like the present button at the top to present this like a slideshow, yes, I could click on that and that would play. But if I hit start lesson here in Pear Deck, it's not, I don't want to say it's not a Google slideshow anymore, but it's coming through Pear Deck. And so certain things don't work. So like, yeah, Mote audio is not going to come through. Animations aren't going to come through. Basically, it turns each slide into like an image. It basically just turns them into an image, pushes that through Pear Deck, and the interactivity comes through Pear Deck. Now, if you have the paid version of Pear Deck, you can add audio that will play in it, but they're not the same thing. They're two separate mechanics that are going on there. So hopefully that makes sense. If you definitely want to have audio in there, either you need the premium version, or you just need to not use Pear Deck for the things that you're wanting to use audio with. Or you could do two slideshows. You could have an instructional slideshow that is shared like a normal slideshow that has Mote dropped in it. And then you could have a second link, which is the Pear Deck slideshow, which then has, oh, and here's, 5 questions to answer, activities to complete after you go through my Google slideshow. Now here's the link to the Pear Deck interactive one. So you could break it up into 2 pieces. That would work. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, hey, let's chat just a little bit about pixel art, and then I'm going to get out of your way because I know you guys have other things that you want to do as well here, and I want to make sure I'm respectful of your time with that. So real quick, little chat about pixel art, since that seemed to be something that got a little bit of interest there. So this you would find in our agenda document on page 3. And I do have a blog post about it and a template that I created for it. Now, first thing first, what is pixel art when we talk about it? So just so you can know what I mean, this is what I mean by pixel art. So pixel art, this would be a picture of pixel art. It's when you have a grid, in this case, a spreadsheet, but when you have a grid, and on this grid, you are filling in colors in the squares, and then making an image out of it. Kind of looks like the old time video games when I was a kid, hence pixel art. Now, there's a lot of ways to make pixel art, but a Google spreadsheet is definitely a good option for that. The thing about a spreadsheet, though, is spreadsheets, they have cells, but they're like rectangular instead of square. So if you're going to do it totally on your own without using a template, you would have to change the width of the cells first, to get them the right size and all. And so to save you a little bit of time, I do have a template that already has that done, plus another little trick I'll show you here in a second. If you click this link for the template, it will make a copy of this spreadsheet, where, first of all, if you look at the bottom, you'll see some tabs. There's a tab called Draw. You'll see that I've already made all of the cells into squares. So that saves you a little bit of time. I, changed the column width. Okay, awesome. That's nice. But the second thing that's nice about it is, well, how do you fill in these squares with color? Normally, you'd click on a square, you'd go up to the toolbar, you'd find the paint can button, and you would choose a color, and it would fill it in. Now, that's fine, but that takes a little bit of time. You're going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, clicking on that paint can button. So in this template, I use something called conditional formatting. And you don't have to know anything about it. You don't have to understand what it is or change it or whatever. But for those that are curious, conditional formatting is something in Google Sheets where you can create rules. And you can say, if you type this into a cell, turn it this color or do something with it. We typically use conditional formatting like to highlight maybe students whose grades are below a certain value to help us see at-risk students or things like that. In this case, what I did was I used conditional formatting to create a whole bunch of rules that basically say if you type in these letters, color the cells certain colors. So I created all those rules in there. So that's just baked right in. So for example, the letter H corresponds to red. So if I just type in the letter H, every time I type in H, it turns red. If I type in S, it turns blue, etc. Well, this is a lot faster. So you can really rip through there and start creating some neat things. Now, so pixel art could just be a fun, artistic, creativity type activity. But other things we could do with it, if you look at the bottom of the template, I've got some tabs. Here's a fractions, 8x8, 10x10, and 12x12 tab, and an area tab. Now let me explain what those are all about. So with these tabs, and you can do other things besides. These are just some examples of things I thought of what you could do with it. In these cases, what the student's going to do is they're going to build their pixel art on an even smaller, grid, 8 by 8, 10 by 10, or 12 by 12. And then after they create their pixel art, they're going to count up how many times they use each color. And then 12 by 12, that'd be out of 144 squares. So they'll figure out in simplest form what fraction do each of the colors represent. As a finished example of this, here's one with a smiley face. So I used the 10 by 10 grid, I did a smiley face, and then I counted up all the colors I used and then figured out the simplest form version of those. I know some schools have tied this into around Christmas time, making pixel art ornaments, and then figuring out the fractions, cutting them out, hanging them up around the room, stuff like that. That can be fun. Same idea though with the area one. Nothing fancy here, just another big area to draw. But if you're talking about square units, you could then go down and say, okay, so what are the how many squares am I using for each of the colors, and what is the total area, the total square unit area of my creation. For that one, I think I did a TARDIS from Doctor Who. So there's my example there of my TARDIS I drew, and I counted up each of the colors I used and the total square units for my particular shape. So there you go. Just some fun things you could do with Google Sheets. That's a little bit different than the normal, making, formulas and graphs and things like that. Cool stuff. And Lisa said about using the applied digital skill lesson for that. Yeah. So if you look, I think, did I include that? I may not have included those in here. I don't have them on this particular one here, but yes, some of my other handouts have a bunch of applied digital skills stuff in there. If you don't know about applied digital skills, I can't say enough good things about it. It is Google's repository of over 160 ready-to-use lessons for students. It's Applied Digital Skills is the name of the site. If you go to the Browse Lessons section, we're up to over 170 now. We have over 170 lessons, and they're all ready to go. They cover lots of topics from late elementary up through adult learners. They cover math, science, language arts, communication, digital citizenship, social studies, or you can go by tool and say, I want to look at specific, things that deal with, docs or sheets or slides or whatever. And you had mentioned the pixel art one. Yeah. There's one in here. Like if I narrow this down to Google Sheets, I can probably find it faster. There it is. Make art with Sheets. And so this is one where, they're creating pixel art using Google Sheets. But what I love about Applied Digital Skills, what really sets it apart is it's all pre-made for you. It's ready to go. For each one of these lessons, there's videos, and they're short. They're like 3-4 minutes long each. And in this case, there's 6 of them. And for this one, and the videos talk the students through step by step by step by step. Here, make a copy of this. Now do that. Now start, and it takes them through the whole thing. And by the time it's all done, they have created whatever the project is. And so great resource there. Thanks for mentioning that, Lisa. I know I've sent out some stuff recently on that. If you got questions, let me know. But that's a great resource as well. All right, guys. Well, hey, I don't want to take any more of your time. If you have any more questions, I am absolutely happy to take them. But I also, again, want to be respectful of your time. All of the things we looked at and way more can always be found there at bit.ly/Curts-Google Math. That'll get you to that document there. And oh yeah, I should give one last shout out. I didn't mention this at the beginning. Do remember, I do try to keep a running list of cool math links. And so some months there's more, some months there's less, but at the very top of the agenda, I did include that as well. Eric's monthly list of tech integration resources for math. This is a Google document that you're allowed to bookmark and refer back to anytime you want. It's been going on for years, and there's a lot of stuff in it. I think it's, dozens of pages long at this point, probably. Let's see, I don't know how many it is, but it's pretty big. But what you'll see, it's still loading in here. Looks like about 23 pages or so in length. What you'll notice in here is each month what I try to do is if I come across any cool math links, I drop them into the math section. And if I come across just general cool things that any teacher might benefit from. I put them in the general section. And so you can go back through, months and months and months of that to see math resources and general resources. So good to keep that on your radar as well. All right, I'll turn it back over to you, Diane. If there's anything else, I'm happy to help out. But otherwise, thank you guys so much for letting me be here with you.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. Hey, if people want to get your monthly list or whenever it comes out, can they get a hold of you or send you their email, or what should they do?
So if you're talking about this list
Yes.
here that I compile each month, I send it out to a couple of specific email lists at the moment. So for example, the math one, there's at least, those listservs that you guys set up, those Google groups, I send it out to the K2 Math Lit and the LM Math and the middle school, high school math. Now that's probably what, lead math teachers probably? Is that who's on those ones? I send it out to all of those. Then I also, I try to also copy it out to the tech integration list that we maintain as well. So I'm trying to think, what would be the best way?
Why don't you just send it to me, and then I can send it to my gifted lead teacher group, and so maybe they get it twice, but that's better than not getting it at all.
Is the gifted lead teacher group one of those groups in that list that you guys put together? Because I could even just add that into, because it makes no difference when I go to, I'm just basically copying and pasting those in when I send them out. I would be happy to include the gifted lead teachers in it as well when I send it out.
I would say yes, but I also know it changes every year, and I don't know if I've updated it, but I'll work with Gail on that. Okay.
Awesome. Well, whatever works best. I would love to make sure we get this information out to folks each time we do that. So I can send it to you, or if you want to check and see if the email address we have for the gifted lead teachers is the correct one to send it to, I can do that too. Whatever works best.
Send it to me for now, and we'll get it.
Will do. Happily.
And I will send out any of the stuff that Eric shared. I will send when I get everything compiled tomorrow, I'll send you all those links again and a link to the recording. Sometimes it helps to see things again, and you can zero in on maybe one section. So I want to thank Eric. We've worked together in North Canton, and he's around the corner now, and his knowledge is phenomenal. So I appreciate him doing this. He just